I love them. I love the changes that were made to the Rooney Rule cell because at the end of the day, you have to find out what are the excuses for lack of minority head coaches, and can I continue to stop the excuses till we are left with none? The problem we so often have is that we try to fix the symptom as opposed to fixing the cause.
I like that.
What is the symptom? The symptom in the National Football League, there are not enough minority coaches. What is the cause? At least one of the causes is there's not a great enough minority pipeline where coaches are hired. Coaches in the National Football League are typically hired based on offensive coordinators. We find the best offensive coordinators, we make them head coaches, period. So now the question is, do we have minority offensive coaches? Because the cause of the symptom is a lack of diversity on the offensive staff, a lack of diversity in offensive coordinators. There were only, if I'm not mistaken, 4 minority offensive coordinators last year. There were 2 minority offensive coordinators the year before, Eric Bieniemy, Byron Leftwich, both of which were in the Super Bowl. Neither were promoted to head coach. So if one of the causes of the lack of minority hiring stems from a lack of offensive minority coaches, then let's start to increase and have an influx of minority offensive people on staff, because when it's times to promote to head coach, you got to go find them. We're fixing the talent pipeline. So much of an issue with minority hiring, both in the working world, corporate, and the NFL world, is a lack of pipeline. At least that's what I hear in doing so many of my speeches. So with that being said, if we fix the pipeline, we can fix the problem. This rule's now fixing the pipeline.
I never liked the Rooney Rule. I really don't like it now. It's got muddied. It's got murky. Now they just say anybody. First, it was specific. And when it was specific, I gave it the benefit of the doubt because at least I knew its intention. But now I call this gumbo grouping. Like, basically, we want a black head coach. We want black candidates. No, we want people of color. No, we want women. And if you know history, that there were moments in history where the civil rights era spurred and ignited other movements. Feminism, women's rights, LGBTQ, like, et cetera, movements, right? And there's nothing wrong with all of that. But what we're not doing is the intention, which the Rooney Rule has now certainly swerved away from. Because if you think about it now, a woman could represent what used to be just yesterday a black man. Now, if you're a black woman, it's a double minority. I guess you're a draw 4 in this Uno game, right? You double it up. But what they intended to do, let's go back to, what was it, 2001?
Rooney Rule?
Yeah.
Yeah, 3. Yes, sir.
3? Now look at where we are. And look at it not by how you feel, but by the real, by the results. How many black head coaches right now? Anybody?
What is it, 3, 4?
Cyclical. Started with 1, got to get a Rooney Rule. Got up to 7, now we're down. Now, when we're down, you know what we're going to do? Add more people that don't add to the aggregate number, but can replace each other. Did you catch that? Like, a woman could replace the man and the black man, but the black man was the reason we had the Rooney Rule in the first place, and now we don't have the black men, but we now have the women. And this is no slight to any of the groups, but I'm not a big fan of identity politics. Despise it, actually. Because now you're trying to smooth out the pipeline, try to make the river flow so fast that anybody get on there and get where they got to go. I keep telling people it's a competence and interest conversation. You can't design what success looks like. Give you an example. We always joke around, but it's serious, too. Being single, which I was at your same age of 31, bruh, I had a different design of what my life was going to look like in terms of kids, in terms of wife, in terms of everything, aesthetics, real stuff. And then all of a sudden, what I did, what I dedicated myself to, what my real intentions were, is what I pursued. And even that looked different. I don't like how we're trying to reverse engineer it. We're going to grab someone from this group, and that's going to give us what we need: inclusion, diversity. But in reality, it's supposed to be, you're basing it on character, competence, and interest. The strong will survive. And guess what? The cream will rise to the top. I hate when people say, you got to make it smoother. Look, it would be nice if this world was level. If Kyrie was right, the world was flat. It ain't. So no excuses, big dog. If you want it, you're going to go get it. And if you don't want it, they can't make it smooth enough for you to go get it. But now we're going to add another bobsled, make the slalom even smoother, and then say, yeah, we're looking out. If you're not changing the ownership level or the playing level, which is really everyone's dream is to be a player. No one's dream is to be a GM until the dream of being a player dies. If you're not changing at the ownership level, this is all distraction. This is all just to pacify. This is all just to pander. This is all to keep you guys on the side tent, enjoying those festivities, while at the main tent, ownership still dictates terms as usual, as standard. I don't like it, man, because I already see it's an issue, and now you just made the issue worse, compounded it, and think you got a fix.
I love your last 4 sentences. If you're not changing it at the ownership level, at the end of the day, you're not truly changing it. I agree with that wholeheartedly. However, Sel, I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm never going to be upset at someone for presenting me a solution. What we do in life, familially, occupationally, spiritually, emotionally, everybody want to come with problems. You go to church, I don't like that pastor. I don't like how the choir only sings that song. Relationally, man, I don't like how my significant other does this. I don't like how they do that. Everybody wants to bring problems, but don't nobody want to bring solutions. So I am content with at least seeing this solution. I've heard what you're saying. I agree with what you're saying. The problem is what you're saying is just problems. That's what we've been saying over the course of time. We've discussed this Rooney Rule for 3-4 months now, and it's a dialogue about problems. Here is a solution. You say that cream will rise to the top. I agree, but cream has to be a present ingredient. So women can only rise to the top in coaching ranks if there are women in coaching ranks. Black people can only rise to the top in coaching ranks if there are black people in coaching ranks. But remember, 2 black offensive coordinators in 2020. Of the 16 head coaching hires the last 2 seasons, 70% of them have been black offensive coaches. 70% have been offensive coaches. Let me restate this for clarity. 2020, 2 black offensive coordinators, Byron Leftwich, Eric Bieniemy. In the last 2 seasons, 16 head coaching hires. 70 have been offensive. So here's what it comes down to, Sel. Simple math equation, and you ain't good at math, it's fine. If I know that 70% of the coaches that are getting hired are offensive, then I am pulling from this offensive pool. 70% of this bucket is going to be offensive. But now that means, is this bucket that I'm grabbing from, this 70% I'm grabbing from, are there any minorities? So at the end of the day, this offensive bucket is filling up the head coaching bucket. So if there's no diversity in the offensive bucket, there can't be diversity in the coaching bucket. So that's why I'm with it. Add some diversity here to the offensive bucket, because this bucket is filling up the head coaching bucket 70%. So I understand how you might say it's pandering because it's not fixing the true issue, but at least it's another step towards trying to fix one of the causes and ultimately one of the symptoms.
Man, you and I are just talking, and we're gonna keep talking it, because I think our kindred spirit is the fact that we want to really learn from differing opinions. I think that's what we really bond the best on. And let me just say this, that I'm not presenting problems. And you're saying, where is the solution? And I'm saying there are no solutions, just trade-offs. And we just traded off a Rooney Rule that was intended for a person of color, a black candidate, for now adding more to an already diluted issue in terms of actual representation. If you're looking at just the numbers and you're saying this is for minorities, this is for people of color, this is for black people, and we only got, last year we started to see, 2020 started off with 3 black head coaches, 2021, 3 black coaches. And now you're saying you can replace a black head coach with a woman and then think you're going to actually increase the numbers? Listen to the owners, what they said. The first question everyone who was thinking was like, wait a minute, why didn't you make this in addition to? You could have made this supplemental. You could have said a woman and a black person or a person of color. You know what the owner said? He said, well, Right now, because there's so few women candidates, we don't see that as a problem. But going forward, we may change it. Boy, they over there petting people on their heads saying, don't you love this? Nothing in my life do I ever want being under your thumb. I never want to hear this in life. I used to call it this. Ellipsis. Oh, because he's black. Ellipsis. Like you're looking for a list of candidates, right? And then you're like, oh, I like him. Oh, I like him because he's black. That's why I never liked the Rooney Rule. Now we're in this position where even a Brian Flores, who, whether it was the Rooney Rule or not, by his own resume, he was a head coach. How many black coaches did he hire? Anybody? What party you go to that everybody gets to go into? Like this whole inclusion conversation is so demeaning to those who actually put in the work of all shades, of all realities. Because they like, dog, don't let nobody pass me up if they ain't grinding the same. And I'm not saying that black candidates not grinding the same. But guess what? If you're undeniable, you're going to get your opportunity. You
believe that?
I'm living that. My experience is my expertise. I have not had a door ever slammed in my face that stayed shut. Because I kept coming back like, bruh, not me. And if you have that mindset and that attitude, it is actually something that is going to supersede what people see on the outside. As long as you're in a position where you're like, I'm going to get to as close as I can to the front of the line and then pick me just because of my shade of color, when I just heard 50 years ago we don't want to be judged by our shades of color, then now we're being judged by our shades of color or gender. Man, I just tell you that the ownership level, my last point is this, at the ownership level, I grew up in an apartment. You grew up in a house. It's a big difference. That dinner table conversation is different because mine with my kids now is different. When we used to come home random month, and I remember his name, Robert Gint, he just raised the rent. And then we had to pay it. And then things get tight. Then another random month and another random year, he raised the rent. Now, to me, that's almost parallel to like, oh, go ahead and be a coach. Go ahead and be a GM. Or let's keep the focus on what's really happening here. There's no black, no minority ownership, but there's 70% minority players on the field that are getting $200, $300, $400, $500 million contracts that can now parlay that into ownership as they go forward. But here's the rub. Owners keep their teams an average of 40 years. I hate to say it, man. We know why. Some of these owners got a head start, if not most, if not all, wherever you want to land. But who in the hell giving that up? So all that's going to happen now is distractions and pandering to say, oh, go ahead. We got 3, we got 5, we got 7. But the real game's been played on the field or it's been played in the owner's box. To me, everything else is just distraction.